Good evening and welcome to a special edition of You Decide. I'm your host, Byron Campbell, and our co-host is here, Senator Chris Diali. Also with us, our guests tonight are Henry Joseph. He's a managing partner of PKF, and Colin Gilchrist. He's, of course, an economist. And tonight we are discussing the 2016 budget. In fact, we're analyzing the 2016 budget. Good evening, gentlemen, and welcome to You Decide.
Good evening.
Thank you very much.
Of course, today, the big happening today is what we can say was the presentation of the 2016 budget statement by the Honorable Prime Minister, Dr. Keith Mitchell. There's a theme moving forward and delivering results. Today, gentlemen, from the theme, did you see a correlation? Did you see a connection with the theme and the specifics in the budget?
You started with me,
no, you did host. I'm not going to start with you, our guest here. Yeah.
No, it did not really come home to me, delivering results. It didn't really come home to me because I know that there are still some significant challenges that the government face. So I don't know if the statement was made in optimism and to give hope and to inspire the troops, as we go forward. But I didn't get that much coming out of the overall statement.
Henry.
Well, I share the view of Colin. The budget did not vary significantly from last year, which means the same conditions that existed in 2015 will continue to exist in 2016. We see that unemployment is increased. I mean, the Prime Minister in his speech, said so. The only thing that stands out is that there is a surplus on the current account. But of course, that surplus is not even sufficient to service our $2.7 billion national debt. So there isn't, too much that's going to change in 2016.
Because of course you've heard the budget, you've seen it. Anything stood out for you in this budget? I mean, what?
Well,
any wows for you there?
I differ from these two gentlemen. Yeah. I think the theme did do something because I think we continue to have to move forward in a particular way. Results was achieved to some degree under the homegrown program, and Henry just alluded, we have a recurrent surplus, we have a primary balance that is positive. There are a number of positives on the macroeconomic side, I think, that was achieved under the homegrown program, and I think we need to consolidate that and continue to move forward together and deliver results. So I think the theme does have some sort of connection to that.
To that. Of course, how the budget is presented, of course, the first thing the Prime Minister did is, of course, look at the performance of up the first 9 months at least, and some projection to the end of the year. On the economy, and looking at the Grenadian economy, the PM noted projections on the global economy, and he made this comparison, 3.1%, the OECS average 1.9%, but pointing out that Grenada stood at 5.1%, good performance in the highest in the ECCU area. Does these numbers surprise you, gentlemen? Do you see and feel the evidence of the growth referred to?
Well, I mean, we're moving from 5.7 in 14 to 5.1 projected for 15, and they're projecting 3% in 2016.
That's right.
You may argue from a GDP growth point of view that you're projecting a recession from 5.1 to 3, but you could also counter argue and say that they're being conservative. And the growth is being led by, as indicated in this speech, by agriculture, tourism, education, and construction. So from where I sit in my industry, I have seen an improvement in construction. Our year-on-year results in my industry have grown by 4-5%. That is, and I'm an allied construction business. So clearly construction has improved and continues to. Agriculture, I know, have had positive growth in probably cocoa in particular, and soursop and some of these other areas. And tourism, the figures are there, and education is primarily SGU, and SGU continues to do and put down significant figures. So if those are the four sectors, then I can say that probably that there is some correlation with that and what is being presented.
Let me hear from my colleagues.
Yeah, well, I agree. The way the GDP, the gross domestic product, is calculated, and by gross domestic product we mean it's putting a value to all the goods and services produced in the economy between January and December, and you value that, and that's called your gross domestic product. So it's a calculation. Of course, the Central Statistical Office would have to collect the information. If you get good compliance and good reporting, then you get a good coverage. In countries where you have a large informal sector, informal economy, or a growing economy, sometimes these growth numbers are understated. It's not really capturing the full extent of the economy. But we don't have that issue here. But from my knowledge, being someone who used to do that kind of work, yes, there is evidence that there have been growth. Nobody could dispute that. As I said, it's just a value of what was produced. Yes, agriculture, I know has done good tourism, education driven by private institutions. So that is great. Whether it's 5.7 by 5.1, the point is there are evidence of growth. Now this figure is very preliminary, because remember in the same document last year, the growth was estimated to just under 3%, and in this document it was revised up to about 5.7. Okay, now so we are given 5.1 now. It's very preliminary. That will be subject to review. Yeah, whether up or down. Because see what happened in this year. Last year we were told it should finish around 2.8 around there, and
Close
suddenly we heard it was almost doubled, and no explanation was given to what really caused that.
But Henry, if we look at it, for example,
but there's growth.
Yeah,
There's
okay.
growth.
I mean, like construction is a very physical sector. You see it. Do you see the evidence there? Do you see?
Well, you see, there has been, and in fact, talking to one contractor today, right? He's saying that last year, right, was particularly bad. Particularly bad. This year, there is a small improvement, and he's hopeful that next year is going to be even better, right? So it means that there is some growth in the economy, albeit a very small. I am not sure.
Prime Minister referred to that as confidence. Do you see it as that? Confidence in the economy, he said. Do you read it this way?
I would not want to use such a strong term, right?
What would you use?
I would say, things, people have to do things, right? I am not sure that could be called confidence, but if you've got 10 cents, you don't want to sit down on it, it's got to do something. If you don't invest it now and you wait for 2 years, that 10 cents become 5 cents, right? So I think, people are just trying to say, look, we have been under pressure for so long, let's do something. Right, so they're just doing what needs to be done.
Okay, I want to move to the question of employment. Very interesting statement on the state or the level of unemployment in particular. The Prime Minister referred to the Labour Force survey and says the rate of unemployment was slightly up from 28.9% in 2014 to 30.4%. An increase due to a higher labor participation rate as more persons, particularly women, he says, are now seeking employment. So, however, at the same time, the government is stating that there are some 3,681 new jobs created. So, on one hand, we have a higher unemployment level, but at the same time, it's put forward as a positive way that people were employed. What do you make of this statement?
Well, let me go first on this one. Well, put it this way. By definition, the unemployment rate is calculated by taking the total amount of persons unemployed divided by the labor force. Multiplied by 100, you get a percentage, right? And the labor force would be those who are unemployed plus those who are employed.
Actively seeking employment.
No.
That's what
those who are employed plus those who are unemployed, not seeking. All right. So that's the definition of the unemployment rate, as they say here. Now they talk about the participation rate, but what it really means is that for the unemployment rate to increase, it means that more people are seeking jobs than those that can find jobs. That is the only reason why the rate will increase. So if you create 10 jobs, and you have let us say
20 people
20 people
applying for the 10.
applying for the 10, that would increase the rate. So because the rate has increased does not mean that jobs are not created. That's not the point. That's not the point. The point being that you have these increasing amount of people looking for jobs, and that's the issue. There are jobs being created, and I think that I want to make this point straight to the point that the major challenge of this government would be job creation. Unemployment remains the single major challenge, notwithstanding the growth. And I also want to make the point that in theory, economics, if you have high growth, you shouldn't have increasing unemployment, generally speaking.
Although you have more people joining labor force.
And for developing countries, any growth above 5% should see a reduction in unemployment rate. The problem we face is that with this high growth, you have it increasing. And this is why I think an attempt was made to explain this on this uniqueness. Yeah?
Well, in fact, reference was made to this phenomenon, if I should call it that, existing in the United States.
No, well, you can't compare.
Some reference was made by the Prime Minister.
Yes, it is in the document.
Of course.
Yeah, but what I'm saying, I think that's unfair to compare our economic realities.
The phenomena.
Yeah. No, but it's not a phenomenon. It can be explained because, as you know, growth may not be all-inclusive. You could generate growth without employment, you know. You have technology driving growth. You have all kinds of stuff driving growth. If the growth is inclusive, you may better see a correlation between increased GDP and increased employment and reduction in unemployment. So I think what is happening here to close this point is that the growth that we are seeing is not so much absorbing of the employment of the labor force. I think that's where the issues are.
Henry, any point you want to make on this? Point? Yeah.
Except to say that the growth that Grenada is experiencing is not the creation of jobs, but the creation of value, right? So yes, we are improving. I mean, we could, see some things happening all around us. Unfortunately, the single most important thing to a country is the creation of jobs. And we are not creating jobs as fast as we should, right? And so unemployment will continue to remain a problem.
Chris, you're thinking hard here. Any input on this?
Well, I mean, I agree with Colin that the expansion in the economy through growth at GDP is probably not happening as fast in the sectors that are heavily dependent on work or creating jobs. So let's use construction, for example. Probably the rate of growth in construction is not fast enough in a short term to create the kind of jobs that will reduce the employment rate, because that is a labor-intensive sector of the economy. So I understand what Colin is coming from. I don't share Henry's view about... Henry probably is pessimistic. I'm an optimist. I disagree. I think we have a lot of things happening in construction and related construction. If you talk to the banks with their mortgage rates and the mortgages, when you talk to the real estate people, what is happening in the real estate industry, there are definite growth and significant growth in those areas. I talk to the engineers, and the engineers will tell you, the established engineering firms and so on, they have never had as much activity and work on their table as they have had in the last year and this year. So when you put all of that together, there is something happening there a lot faster than my friend here is saying. But I also believe that the growth rate in the sectors, for example, if we're growing fast in education, education does not necessarily employ low-skilled people. It's highly skilled people. So you wouldn't see an effect on the employment rate if a large pool is on the unskilled side. And I think that is the difference. So you will see an increase in the unemployment rate because where you're getting growth is not for the low skill or
I understand, gentlemen. I want to move on. The issue of inflation, and this is of course measured by the consumer price index, and the Prime Minister reported this fell by 1.3% for the first 6 months of the year, mainly due to the drop in oil prices, which led to decreases in electricity, water, and fuel, for example. But how real could this be? Yes, a drop in oil prices when at the same time there was an increase in the taxation at the fuel pump. How real was this, therefore, in terms of a saving to the consumer?
No, I think it was because electricity prices, I don't have the percentages now, but I think the average householder will tell you that his bill has fallen over that of the previous year. I am not sure that that is true, for water, but certainly for fuel and for electricity, the fuel that you put in your motor vehicles. And of course, we know why. There has been a 50% decline in the world price of oil.
But at the same time, we're saying that the increase in the taxes on fuel by the government went up.
Yes,
Yeah,
it
okay.
did. It did. You see, but the taxes weren't sufficient to outweigh the drop in world prices.
So the consumer benefited.
Yes, so the consumer
ultimately.
definitely
Yeah.
And remember, that tax that the government have increased. Yes, the government increased their tax by some 66% from $3
Yeah,
to
$5.50, yeah.
And probably the FOB price landed of fuel was around that, so you didn't get an offset. But if the government holds true to the fact that they don't intend to increase it beyond $5.50, it becomes a fixed charge. Any other further drop in FOB, you will feel it.
But at a consumer, consumer would have
will
this.
get the effect.
Viewers, please stay with us. We have to take a short break here. We'll be right back.
The Grenada Chamber of Industry and Commerce is hosting its annual awards ceremony to recognize businesses that have been outstanding over the last year. And you are invited to vote for the company of your choice for the GCIC People's Choice Award.
You can do so by voting via a text to 8683, right? 8683. As of today, you can start voting.
You have until November 26th to nominate the business of your choice for the People's Choice Award.
Come out, everybody, to the Spicy Divas in concert, November 27th at the Spice Basket starting 8 p.m. with an after party until 2:30 a.m. featuring Emily Rapier, Jenny J, Rita Augustin, Melissa Williams, JD Batiste, Sakina Ambrose, Adrienne Forsyth, and Lisa McDonald, along with a Soul Deep Band and our special Spicy Divas guests. Tickets are only $30. Which can be purchased today at $25 until October 31st from Cutie's Beauty Supply, Nikki's Shoe Shop, Gittins Drug Mart, Tea's Boutique, A Cut Above, Colombian Emeralds in St. George's, and LL Ramdani Company Limited in Grenville, St. Andrews. This exciting concert is sponsored by
Grenada General Insurance, compliments Robato Studios.
Divas in concert.
How do you choose your toilet paper? Just because it's soft and nice. That's how I choose my toilet paper. Made right here in the Isle of Spice. Cherish Spring Soft Harbor Bay. Super value every day. The price is right and locally they're made. Support local when you purchase Cherish and other quality brands from Grenada Paper Products.
No matter how careful you are, accidents will happen. But with Garden Group's comprehensive range of insurance policies, we can take care of all the things you care for. From your car to your house, to your contents, to fire insurance, and much more. Garden Group. Live safe. Live easy.
Those guys only go in and...
Welcome back, viewers. We're here doing an analysis of the 2016 budget. My co-host Chris Diali, Senator Chris Diali. We have Henry Joseph, managing partner of PKF, and Colin Gilchrist, an economist, of course. Gentlemen, fiscal performance. Now, the government has stated that there has been significant improvement in the country's fiscal position, and here's why. This is the stats they put forward. Current expenditure was on par in terms of balance. Grants, however, very low, 72 million, 0.1 million realized out of a target of 214 million. Current expenditure, again on balance, targeted the performance was 470, targeted was 482. Capital expenditure significantly down, 119 million realized, 199 realized, targeted 313. So grants and capital expenditure are certainly not performing in this projection. And the question is why?
Well, I cited when I did my debate in the last budget that the biggest risk we faced in 2015 when the budget was presented was the dependence on the national transformation from the CBI. Mm-hmm. In that budget, they had projected that they will get more than $100 million for capital works to support the surplus on the current side and grants and loans. Again, we've seen in this budget a heavy dependence of 198 million from 98. Well, we don't know for sure, but projecting about 198 million coming from the CBI program to help with the capital side. Again, I believe it is something that is of concern because the CBI performance and monies coming into the National Transformation Fund is going to be highly dependent on the people. And when you look at what's happening in the world now, Byron, with all the things with Syria and so on, you have to be even now more careful of who is going to be coming into the CBI program. And I think the screening is going to have to step up another notch. So I am not confident that this presentation here of $198 million to come from there for the capital side is going to really materialize.
It's an issue. Colin, here, projected 124.9 million. You realized 12 million, but yet you repeated this in terms of your projection. What's your concern here?
I mean, from my own experience, I think that maybe based on what's in the pipeline, is convincing enough
to project this.
To project that based on what is in the pipeline, that would have informed. I don't think they are crazy, right? So you have to be based on
some reality.
Because if you look at the last year performance, one would utter caution, right? But they persist in having this huge project. So it all means that what's in the pipeline. But this is a key point. Now, while this budget is a surplus budget, and it's a long time we haven't had a surplus budget, so I think.
So we clap hands for that. This is a positive thing.
But it's a budget. Be careful.
It's a projection.
It's a budget. But I want to support the point Senator Diallo is making. Now, when you take that risk on the capital, if you do not realize your returns on it, in grants, what it means, it put pressure now to make adjustments on the recurrent side, and that's what happened last year. In between the year, during the year, we had adjustments, fiscal adjustments, because the CBI program and Petro-Caribbean was not bringing in the funds. So you are forced to make some, within the year, fiscal adjustments in order to meet your target based on the IMF program. This year, they run that same risk, right? I think they run the same risk, and I anticipate that they would not, I don't think they would realize the projections here, and it may require a fiscal adjustment to help on the recurrent side. And remember too, that servicing for the based on the new arrangement will begin in 2016.
Correct.
All right, which means that the reliability on your revenue source has to be very, very, very clear and straight, because you are now starting your repayment on the first set of debt arrangement. You're now starting to pay your debt, the new arrangement. We can afford to slip up, right? So it means that funds would have to go there. The first call on the revenue would have to be debt. That is what I'm seeing in 2016. The first call on your revenue would have to be debt.
And that takes about just over 40%.
It's 45% of total, is almost half.
Yeah.
And I suppose
I
suppose wages and salaries maybe about 20% of total expenses, right?
Yeah, they have gotten the ratio down from 70% to 48%.
48%.
But that ratio is on what?
70 cents on a dollar to 48 cents on a dollar.
A dollar revenue, a dollar expense?
Revenue.
Right, but on the expense side, it will be less than that, right? You understand what I'm saying? So I'm saying that 2016 will be very, very interesting. Because if these capital source of financing don't yield what is supposed to yield on a monthly basis, in order to safeguard the achievement of the program so far, you would have to make fiscal adjustments. I'm not talking about new taxes, but I'm saying fiscal adjustments.
The only thing I will add to what Colin is saying, apart from agreeing to what he's saying, is that the IMF just approved 2.7 million disbursement
US dollars.
Yes, under their arrangement, and said that government have done well under the structural adjustment program, met all its targets, and so on and so forth. That tends to unlock more funds through the EU, whether it's for budgetary support or for capital expenditure. So if that has just happened and that is coming in, there may be some unlocking of funds there to help on the capital side, to what Colin is saying.
But I'm not seeing it. I'm not seeing it program here.
No, but I'm saying, but based on the last experience from when they review under the IMF and the IMF, there is funds that will get unlocked from EU and World Bank and so on. So if that happens, probably, it may not be in the speech, but probably based on past recent experience, that may help to offset.
Henry, what's your take on that? In fact, Henry, yeah, because let me just make this point.
I would have taken a more conservative approach.
Yes.
Right? Because if you anticipated collecting $124.9 million, and all you did was collect 10% of it.
Yes.
Except there's going to be a paradigm shift. I cannot understand how you can say that in the coming year you're going to collect over $100 million. I can't see how that is going
Unless
to
what Chris said that with certainty.
Except there is a lot in the pipeline. And I mean, I don't have that information, of course. Colin may have it. Because he's saying, But I would have been more conservative. I mean, because your outturn was 10%.
Yes.
I would have said if you went for a 30%.
Yeah.
But
well, speaking of the pipeline, I've looked at the published statistics on the CBI program
on the website,
and on the website, and the numbers are not great in terms of approvals and application. So I can't say there may be pipeline from this year that will spill over, and we only speaking here of 12 months, right?
Yes,
it's 12 months, I don't know.
So, gentlemen, we move on. Unpaid claims, of course, or claims being paid is significant for economy. What was reported here that unpaid claims, which was down to the 10 million, what the government has claimed by year end, unpaid claims for over 60 days will be zero. How important is this statement?
That is crucial, I believe, because you see that also filters into capital works for organizations where these unpaid claims are being paid. So it helps with job creation, it helps with in the construction sector. So some organizations where have had large receivables with government and is being paid down now is going to get monies to invest in capital works and other works. And it helps in that respect, I think. So that is a positive thing. And then from our point of view in the private sector, when government pays its outstanding claims, gives us a certain level of confidence that there is some importance being placed on that. A little more money is coming in people's hands, and you may expect a little extra economic activity. So it is a positive thing for local outstanding claims to be paid down and get to zero, at least those over 60 days.
My only comment on that, it didn't say how the claims would go to zero, right? There are various ways you can go from 10 to 0. There could be swapping of obligations, right? So it may not mean a total cash payout. I mean, the private sector owes debt to government, and government owe them. So there may be exchange of checks and so on. So in terms of net flow, I don't know the extent to which there'll be much net flow, but it's a noble cause, right? And I think this would be a remarkable achievement to get it down to 0. But I'm saying
what is
from the cash flow,
but what is significant? We project that unpaid claims over 60 days.
Over 60 days.
Right?
Yeah,
over 60 days. I think that is extremely significant.
It
does not mean that you would not have claims.
No, you would have, but
that are 110 million
I'm saying,
dollars as well.
But
except that they won't be as aged.
I wish to support Senator Dially's point that cash actually flow, and I think that's where you get the maximum effect.
In the
if in fact
cash
right?
flow.
Oh yes, it will help with cash flow tremendously.
Gentlemen, no new taxes. But if I'm wrong, in fact, the opposition was very critical recently about the fact that stating that there were 28 different taxes at government in the last 16 months. But since there are no new taxes, what's going to be financing this additional revenue requirement?
No, there is. Don't forget, the projections for 2016 is almost identical with that of 2015. right? So there are no new taxes, but you are going to continue to collect, your same amount of revenue, right? So I think it's a good thing that there are no new taxes. We can now breathe a sigh of relief, as it were.
And Colin, how does this compare to our other OECS colleagues, partner countries?
No. Let's take a step back.
You want to stay there? Fine.
No, you said no new taxes, right?
Yes.
So if I take the word new out, what do I get? You get no taxes, right?
Yeah.
But you know that the existing taxes will be asked to contribute and to finance the budget.
Yes.
So that can only happen when you have the growth in the economy. So generally, if the economy grows, you expect more revenue to flow into the country. All right? Now, if there's a big increase in investment, foreign direct investment, we know that most of these investments are coming with concession and so on. So you get an indirect inflow into the treasury to the value-added tax and so on. So what I'm anticipating here that the financing of the budget will be from efficiencies. All right, there'll be an emphasis based on what is being said here on tax collection. They have revamping land revenue department, so there are efficiencies there. And from the normal momentum in the economy, the growth, that will also contribute to increased revenue. I think these are the bases on which they are going to finance the budget. Now, no new taxes, so we don't expect anything new. But from reading the IMF report and what the IMF have been saying for the year 2016, the overall program needs to end up with a 3.5% primary balance surplus. We're not there yet. So to ensure you get there, the existing taxes would have to be so calibrated to produce that yield.
Or the expenditure had to be cut more.
But in addition to that, you have to have more effort
On the
at
expenditure
reducing.
side.
No, not containing expenditure. You are not going to contain it. You have to reduce it.
Gentlemen, we have to take a break here. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
Come out, everybody, to the Spicy Divas in concert, November 27th at the Spice Basket starting 8 p.m. with an after party until 2:30 a.m. featuring Emily Rapier, Jenny J, Rita Augustin, Melissa Williams, JD Batiste, Sakina Ambrose, Adrienne Forsyth, and Lisa McDonald, along with the Soul Deep Band and our special Spicy Divas guests. Tickets are only $30. Which can be purchased today at $25 until October 31st from Cutie's Beauty Supply, Nikki's Shoe Shop, Gittins Drug Mart, Tea's Boutique, A Cut Above, Colombian Emeralds in St. George's, and LL Ramdani Company Limited in Grenville, St. Andrews. This exciting concert is sponsored by
Grenada General Insurance, compliments Roboto Studios.
Divas in concert.
2, 3, 7. If you wanna check the grand like balance on your phone, or report a faulty line near your home. If there is an emergency, take out your phone. These are 3 numbers that you should know. 2, 3, 7. Call me anytime. I'm always on the line. 2, 3, 7. Just call me anytime. I'm always on the line. 2, 3, 7.
You like it? Yeah, nice.
Like a fool, I went and stayed too long. I'm wondering if your love's still strong. Ooh, baby, here I am, signed, sealed, delivered.
Oh, our window.
Here I am, baby. Oh,
Have a good day.
St. Lou, they came through.
St. Lou Metal, 19 Frequente Industrial Park. Call us on 439-6538.
The Grenada Chamber of Industry and Commerce 27th Annual Business Awards for Excellence will be held on Saturday, November 28th at the Grenada Trade Center. And tickets are now available at a cost of $225 for you to be part of the prestigious Black Tie event. Book your tickets now by calling the GCIC office on 440-2937 and come celebrate with the winners in the GCIC Business Awards.
Welcome back, viewers. We're here discussing the 2016 budget statement. Gentlemen, debt restructuring. Public sector debt, $2.7 billion. Public debt to GDP ratio, 103.6%, incredibly high. The government is projecting, however, this ratio to drop to some 89.5% at the completion of the debt restructuring and 60% by 2020. What is your knowledge of how this will be achieved?
I mean, it's an ideal. I mean, it's courageous. I think well, based on what I've seen, the restructuring of the debt will definitely bring it down to about 89%. That's correct. Thereafter would depend on one, the growth in the economy, and the ability of the current operation of the government to generate the funds to service the debt, and of course that we do not contract more debt. Right? That's important. If we have to contract more debt to
but you
the
have
economy.
to.
Yeah, well, no, we have the fiscal incentive, the fiscal rules that
you have the new fiscal responsibility. But plus you have the new debt management bill that came into that was passed that the Prime Minister alluded to in this speech. So there are two working in tandem to control the appetite of government to take on more debt, and that is
so it's in law.
Yeah, that's law. So it's crucial that you must have the regulatory framework to control the spend through debt, and that is important. I think the government needs to be commended on this. To reach an agreement with the Paris Club and to get 50% shave, 25-25 based on performance, as you've said, is commendable. And that is something they need to, and that obviously took a lot of negotiation and a lot of hard work on behalf of the Ministry of Finance. So I think they need to be commended. My only thing about this whole debt restructure, and I won't talk about NIS in a little while.
Yeah, that's the next thing coming up, yes, of course,
I think on the local side, debt owed to banks by government through their various loans with the local banks and the overdrafts and so on they have in local banks has not been mentioned or seen here in terms of restructure and what is going to happen there. So it leaves the local financial institutions in some limbo, I believe, as it relates to the restructuring here, because what has happened here is the bondholders and what has happened here is the Paris Club. So you have not heard about that tranche.
The domestic besides the NIS, of course, we did hear about the NIS.
So that is, for me, from a private sector point of view, some concern. And we probably need to hear that addressed and what is government's plan for that, because obviously our domestic financial institutions will be in some limbo, not understanding how they will be affected. And what is going on with them.
Yeah, that is, I would agree with the government to first tackle the external debt, commercial debt. I think
what's the strategy in this?
Well, the cost of the debt. The external debt is very costly, and you need to address that in the first instance. And that's what draining your resources. The domestic debt, I think you have more instruments to deal with the domestic debt, and I think it's easier to do. But at the same time, you got to be cautious because you don't want to interfere with the financial system. Remember, you don't want to create any noise in the system. Apart from the overdraft and the other debts that they have. So I think the next phase would be, I don't want to speak for the Ministry of Finance, but I assume the next phase would be to look at the domestic aspect about it in a very cautious way. But once the external is settled, you now have a better platform to deal with the domestic debt. But it has to be done carefully.
Correct.
You don't want to disturb the financial system. You don't want to interfere.
And not only that,
system.
you can't interfere with the arrangements you have with Paris and because all the debt holders want some sort of synergy and they want the same parity. And so you have to be careful how that is also done. So
but I want to make a point that in going forward, if we don't get the economy back on a sustainable growth path, we're back to square one in the next 10 to 15 years.
In terms of your debt growth and all
yes,
this,
we can only get that debt rate when the economy has to grow. We have the other rules in place in terms of capping and restraining governments.
That's what the government is demonstrating.
But you have to grow the economy.
In real terms.
In real terms. I'm speaking about the real economy, you know. Things, the economy like going in the market on a Saturday morning and buying fish and so on. That's the real economy I'm talking about, you know. That's what I'm talking about, real stuff.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about real stuff. NIS, of course, this came in for a lot of discussions. And I recall there's been a lot of criticism about the NIS. However, the government reported that the arrears is down to $20 million. They've paid up all payments due over the past 33 months. What is the risk to the sustainability of the scheme?
I
Well,
can talk about NIS.
Yeah, let me take the first
Fine.
bite out of this.
Good,
And
fine.
I want to say that, first of all, the private sector have a major interest in this NIS situation. We contribute 5%. Labour contributes 4%.
Yes.
Recent times you've heard Labour making a lot of noise. I have not said anything, but I won't say tonight.
Good.
First of all, I think they're escalating a situation that doesn't require that level of escalation. When you look at the let's deal with the debt restructuring first with NIS. NIS have been offered by government, and the Prime Minister said it in the budget speech, that they're going to reschedule the time of the debt in terms of how they pay, 10 and 15 years. 10 years, the first 10 years interest, and in the last 15 years interest and principal. And the interest rate is going to be 3%. Obviously, the interest rate is not the interest rate that they obviously would have had in the initial investment, because based on my understanding of the bonds, it's a stepped up interest rate. So it would have stepped up from 3, and as you come closer to payment, it will rise to about 6% or 7%. So NIS has a potential to lose about 3% on these bonds, on these investment instruments over the next 25 years. The issue here is, for us to understand the impact, it is how much money, first of all, is invested. If it's 100 million, let's say it's 100 million, 3% of 100 million is how much? 30 million?
Yeah.
That will be lost,
That's right.
right? Or 3 million?
3 million.
3 million that will be lost. So if you have 100 million invested in bonds and you lose 3% interest over the next 25 years, you're losing $3 million. The question becomes, is it that significant to cause NIS to falter? I don't think so. Secondly, you need to do an actuarial review. If the actuaries say that this new arrangement is going to cause severe stress on NIS because of how it is structured, then we listen to that and see what can be done. So I think we jump in the gun and talking a lot of things about NIS, and we're not fully informed and understanding.
Criticism is premature. That's
I
what
think
you
so.
say. Yeah.
And then what concerns me as a private sector representative on NIS is that NIS have not presented financials to the Parliament since 2012.
But you're a director on the NIS.
No, I'm not a director on the NIS.
You're not a director.
No, I sit in Parliament looking for the accounts.
Okay.
And that to me is of more concern to us as potential recipients.
Any
of
explanation,
NIS.
excuses
I don't
given
know.
for
But they're breaking
this?
the law, obviously,
Yeah.
by not doing that. By not presenting to Parliament, and statutory organizations now have very special rules that they have to live up to in presenting their financials. So what could have caused them not to come? We in 2015, we didn't see 13, we didn't see 14, we didn't see 15.
Did you ask this question in Parliament, Senator?
No, I have not asked it yet.
So you intend to?
He said he will.
But the point is, that to me is what should be spoken about, because an institution as important as NIS must present its financial strengths or weaknesses, or present to us how strong they are, how they're performing or not performing financially, so that we could assess. So the fact that we're not getting that information is of major concern. And so I think we're making a lot of noise in this area that is not unwarranted noise. And unfortunately, as I say, I don't play the politics. Those who have to play politics will play it. But we're making this a political football that I think is not necessary to do.
Any comment on this?
I understand the Senator point, and NS have not said anything to date. All right. My own take on it is a matter of risk, and ensuring that NS is able to withstand any risk. By that I mean any unanticipated demand on the system. We had chikungunya, well, that made some demand, but any unanticipated demands on the system, whether or not NS would have the resources and the resources to
deal with that.
To deal with that. So that is my main cause, a matter of risk.
I want to move on to the estimates of revenue and expenditure. Total revenue and expenditure provided for a total of $1.25 billion. Exactly $1,125,607,770. What's alarming is the percentage going to service debt, some 40. $456 million, some 40.5% of this. What's the challenge you see here, gentlemen, in just looking at these numbers?
No, well, as was mentioned before, right? The fact that the government have obtained, as it were, the haircut that they were seeking, right? They must service the debt. Because now that you have said, look, I cannot pay $10, I will only pay $5.
But let's put this in context for persons that are listening. This amount of money, this $456 million, is more than all the money we're going to put into agriculture, tourism, education, health, works, youth, pension and gratuities, national securities. All of these, in other words, is more than all the money that's going to go to all of these sectors for the entire year.
Yeah.
That's the context. Is our situation similar to what exists in the other OECS countries?
Yeah.
This
The
is-
OECS is about the same.
So this is
all the OECS countries are bad.
The Great Trinidad,
Yeah.
with the change in oil prices and
Prices,
gas
yes,
and
yes,
so on,
yes.
is in a serious economic situation now with that. And their debt situation
Yeah,
is
you know
going
the
to-
facts that you must service your debt. Now that you have got all these concessions, you have absolutely no choice. Because you cannot now say, thank you very much, but I'm still not able to pay. You can't do that.
I mean, I think the Prime Minister went at lengths to say that they have been servicing debt. I think somewhere here he said they paid 299 or 399
Yeah,
million
that's all.
299, I
right,
think.
in debt over
Debt
over
the period.
2015 and continue to pay. But as
But
Henry said, and I
what is
agree.
the implications for development? I mean, that's the question.
Well, the question is, Byron, is where have some of these monies gone?
Yeah.
And has it gone in infrastructure development?
Or
Have it gone in
investments, that's
productive
gonna-
sectors,
productive sectors.
that could
Yeah,
make
but
us
that's water
recover?
under the bridge, really.
And that's water under the bridge.
I won't spend time
Look,
arguing
look,
about
we move on. Let's look at one of the areas of and a big area that's eaten up a lot of money is that of course, the level of staff in the ministries. In other words, what the government paying in salaries, particular. The government has an attrition policy, and this is the main strategy for dealing with the government gigantic wage bill via its attrition policy. Every 10 persons retiring, only 3 are hired. But is this adequate to deal with the issue of the situation in our ministries?
Well, I think to me, and from this budget, there's an anomaly with the figures and what was presented. We were told that for every dollar spent, 70 cents is on wages and
for every
pensions.
every dollar collected.
Right, we spend 70 cents on paying wages and emoluments and so on, pensions and whatever. But at the same time, we said that I think only 278 people through the attrition policy have gone. And then we said that we move it from 70 cents to 48 cents.
That's correct.
All right, so that's a huge drop from 70 to 48. And we have not, now you could argue that the wage restraint has helped in that you didn't think, they had a huge back pay sometime in this cycle that wasn't there, so which would have elevated the figures to the 70 cents. But that is a huge drop from 70 to 40. So there's a little thing here for me.
Anomaly.
And yes.
I think that is the single biggest challenge we have. I agree with the government's philosophy of not retrenching and trying to work through attrition. I think that is a
But is that
positive
policy continuous into the health sectors, for example?
Well, no, they said that in this budget that they're changing that. They're bringing in doctors, they're trying to bring in nurses.
So they will not, the attrition policy will not affect health services.
They rectify the teachers and so on.
I want to move into one area, which is health, and this area has been getting a lot of criticism recently by the opposition and other persons. But the PM reported that healthcare is improving. The opposition, of course, says no. The government admitted only to the poor situation with the dialysis unit and promised to restore its functionality at the shortest possible time. Health had an allocation of, I think, an increase of $12 million to some 75. Is health getting the attention it requires, gentlemen?
Well, I mean, he listed a number of things here that they have done in health to improve. Princess Alice, Princess Royal, equipment they have brought in. He talked about the I ward, the steel structure, the children's ward, the isolation unit, intensive care. There's a number of
Chris,
things.
just hold on here. I have a caller online. I think I'll take the caller. We come back to the conversation. Good evening, caller. Go ahead, please.
Good evening, Mr. Campbell.
Go ahead,
Long
please.
Time we have not spoken. Cliff Robertson here. Gentlemen, the growth in the economy, which you guys are talking about, is it as a result of real growth in the economy? In other words, is the pie getting any bigger? Or is it as a result of the massive taxes which we have seen in this year? For example, property tax, 100%. and all the other licenses and fees. Before you answer, let me tell you something. We should go back to Basic Economics 101, which tells us that an economy in recession cannot be taxed into prosperity. An economy in recession needs massive tax cuts and lowering of interest rate, so that, especially in the mortgage sector, so that people can refinance their loan and get some money in their hand to spend. But these massive taxes have been sucking like a vacuum money out of the people's pockets. I'll answer my question, the question I pose. Is the growth in the economy as a result of real growth? In other words, the pie is getting bigger, so the economy is getting bigger and the government is getting more taxes. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, caller. Of course, you heard the question, gentlemen. It's a good question. Let me start with you, sir.
Yes, just to respond, just to clarify, I think he's kind of mixing up how growth is calculated. It's a value. It's a value formula. You value production. You value what services. You value what you produce. It's a valuation that is being done on the economy. We call it economic accounting. Yeah, it's a valuation. It's separate from your taxation and all these things and them. So yes, you could have value being created, and that is different from the taxes you pay. It's quite completely different, right? So I think he's mixing up the two. But the growth, I must say, is based on how it's calculated, is credible. I'm not questioning the growth because I know how it's being calculated. The issue is whether or not people are benefiting from the growth.
But he mentioned taxes. With all the, I think, 20 plus new taxes in recent times. How does our taxes compare to those in other OECS countries, for example?
We're still on the low side.
We're on the low side.
Yeah. When you look at the tax effort, which is a measure of how much you pay in relation to the GDP, we are on the low side. That is a fact. And compared to all OECS countries.
we're not at the bottom.
We're not at the bottom, but we're still on the low side, which signals that probably you could take more. That's a signal.
Okay, that's a signal.
That's a signal, not necessarily.
We don't want this kind of signal.
But the only issue, with the tax burden is the base. You see, if you broaden the base, then the tax effort becomes easier. But when the base is narrow, then you feel the weight of the taxes.
Okay.
And of course, what you need is more compliance. Because
more compliance.
That is still
the
a
government
problem.
talked about this.
Yes, that is still a serious problem.
Big issue, of course, is youth. I heard a comment today that not enough was said about how you're going to move the youth being a big issue, the amount of youth unemployed. We heard that some $31.4 million will be placed for administration delivery of the new Imani program, the flagship, of course, of the government. Is the strategy too narrow? Is it adequate to deal with the whole question of youth and development in Grenada? The youth being, of course, the majority of our population at this time, gentlemen?
Byron, let me tell you, I am a supporter of giving young people hope. I have a young son, so I know what it is for you not to be having a job and getting up every day and being frustrated. So I think I understand to some degree how these young people feel. And I always said, if I have to spend, giving my tax money, 31 million or how much the government is spending on the money, to create some sort of hope for young people and give them some sort of objective to get up every morning and go somewhere to do something, regardless of whether it's training, retraining, or whatever it is, I am happy to do that. The Imani is not a perfect program, and it has a lot of areas where you could criticize it and say, but I think the general principle of offering these young people an avenue to get off the block and not engage in other unsocial activities, whether it be whatever it is something that needs to be commended. And even though we're spending, 30 million on it, I am happy to spend it. That is my personal view. As I say, I'm not here to say whether the Imani.
Remember, you're the co-host this afternoon, huh?
Yeah.
Chris, what, let me have your view on this, please.
Yeah, I agree with the general principle of the Imani program. I think it's something that we have to support. I mean, as a country, with respect to our young people, because the issue is what if we don't do it? What are the consequences and the costs?
Yeah.
I think the contention is the execution of the program and the areas of weaknesses, and to make sure that you get value out of value for money. I think that's where the issue is. But
hold on. We have a caller online. We come back. Good evening, caller. Go ahead, please. Good evening, caller.
Good night, sir. Good night, Mr. Campbell.
Good night.
And good night to the three other gentlemen. Yeah. I really, really want to say that I think you all, the three of you all there, are making valuable sense and valuable contribution. But I'm hoping that you all take that not only to that forum there, but to the oppositions and to the persons, like the gentleman I just called there, where Mr. Cullen had was to actually explain to him. I hope that you do that in the outside so that so that people understand. Because let us be honest with ourselves, there is growth in the economy. Although we know that there are heavy tax and there are people are heavy tax, there is growth. And let us not monkey around ourselves. I'm not an economist. I don't know nothing about figures. But there is growth. Anybody tell me that there's not growth in this government, since this government coming, is not true. You are seeing more people working. You are seeing more houses building. You are seeing more jobs around. You are seeing the buses. I have seen about 4 or 5 new buses in the area where I'm living. You are seeing things. The economy is building. So let us not fool around ourselves. Yes, I think somebody points you all make, the government has to be very careful. I think the government is a little bit too, how could call it, get a big word to use. I think the government is stretching their foot a little too far. I think they are raising their hands too much. I think they are trying to grab too much. I am in contact that the government is, the expectation is a little bit too big. I believe that. But to say that nothing is happening, it is definitely not the truth. And to say that because people are heavily taxed, we are not seeing growth is not truth. While people are heavily taxed, we are seeing growth. So while I'm glad that you all are saying that there, please explain that to the rest of the people.
Thank you very much, caller. He's explained himself. He didn't ask a question.
No, he's not asking a question.
Made a statement. I want to move to the question of social care, housing and social care. The opposition has criticized the government on increasing public assistance, with the understanding that if the economy is improving, more people working and better off, why are they increasing public assistance? So the increases in these sectors, for example, the SEED program, $13.8 million, the roving caregivers geriatric program, $2 million, uniform and transportation. So do you see a contradiction, gentlemen, as observed, as stated by the opposition on this matter of social care, the taxation in this area increasing? But hold the answers. I have a caller online. I want to go to the line. You have priority caller. Go ahead, please. Good evening.
Hello. Good evening.
Hello. Good evening.
Mr. Campbell.
Go ahead, sir.
Yes, I'm very concerned about, I'm a guy on the block all the time, like I move around. I pay NIS, but okay, I'll be retiring next year. I paid my full, maximum. And when you go around and you hear guys on the NIS boat saying, man, I like to be on boats because when I get that money, it's for gas and beers. And somebody that worked 20 years getting $200 a month. What do you think about that? That's my contribution. Thank you. Okay.
Well, I mean, NIS is not there, and any pension-related type of activity cannot give you 100% of what you left the labor market with. So if you're working for $100 at your last salary, NIS is not going to give you back $100. You normally get the average is between 60 and 70% of that. That is the reality. So you would get if you had a private pension scheme, it's the same thing. So some people augment the NIS with a private in order to get their income back up to almost where they left. So it is dependent on what you do. So, I mean, for the caller, he has to understand that if he invests $10 in NIS over the years, he wouldn't get back 10. He's going to get back
a percentage of what he put in. We have another caller online. Good evening, caller. Go ahead, please.
Hi, good evening, and good evening to the rest of the panelists. I'm just calling to make a short contribution. The Prime Minister is saying that there is a growth in the economy, and also more people are in jobs. However, a lot of people are being laid off now. A lot of the banks are closed, especially in the Grenville area. A lot of people are sent home. Look at people from cable and wireless lines, people from the postal operations and so on. So a lot of people are being laid off, and that is something to take into consideration when you're talking about growth. That's my contribution.
Thank you very much, caller.
No, but he must, the caller must accept also that the Prime Minister also said that unemployment has increased.
Has increased.
So he has acknowledged.
He has acknowledged that.
Yeah.
We have to take a short break now. Viewers. Please stay with us. We'll be right back.
It's the penultimate weekend of football in the 7th annual Wagiti Super Knockout Football Tournament. And we're down to the semi-final. And it's happening this Saturday, November 28th at the Victoria Park in Grenville. Get ready! Playing 2 exciting semi-final matches. In Game 1, Hurricane versus Queen's Park Rangers. And in Game 2, Paradise International FC versus Hard Rock. After the 2 games, it's showtime. Straight out of Antigua and Bermuda, Ricardo Drew. And from Grenada, the dynamic duo, Loose Cannon. Alongside Westways, Litanati and Thunder. So you know the park is going to be awesome. Admission $20. The semi-final of the 7th annual Wagiti Super Knockout Football Tournament is on this Saturday. Ricardo Drew. Don't miss it.
No matter how careful you are, accidents will happen. But with Garden Group's comprehensive range of insurance policies, we can take care of all the things you care for. From your car to your house, to your contents, to fire insurance, and much more. Guardian Group. Live safe. Live easy.
Hey, what happened to you? Your husband beat you up again?
No, chikungunya.
All under your eyes swell up, all your jaw swell, even your mouth.
I tell you, it's chikungunya.
Listen, you don't have to be afraid to report the matter, you know.
I tell you, it's chikungunya. I catch you for the 6th, 7th time.
All right. Watch. Talk to a counselor. Or better yet, walk away. You're not guilty of anything. You are the victim here.
Domestic violence would not go away if victims do not walk away or refuse to speak out. It is a cycle that goes on and gets worse and worse over time. Break the silence and begin the road to getting your life back and living without violence.
How's that? The biggest show of cricket touches down on Flow Sports. That's what you call a power play. 30 sizzling games. Watch your win these players turn up the heat. Don't miss out on star performances by Chris Gale, Kevin Cooper, Evan Lewis, Darren Sammy, Lyndon Simmons, Sunil Devine, Andre Russell, Marlon Samuels, Krishma Santoki. How's that? The BPL T20 only on Flow Sports. Now that's what you call a power play.
You like it? Yeah, nice. Oh, our window. Aye. Have a good day.
St. Lou, they came true.
St. Lou Metal, 19 Frequente Industrial Park. Call us on 439-6538. Them don't know about Mars, boy. So when we reach his bacchanal, tell them no we pass. When we reach his bacchanal, they rum in your glass. When we reach his
I hope them producers and them hear that selection day, you know.
Fridays at 8 p.m. on CC6. TC6.
Welcome back, viewers. We're here doing an analysis of the 2016 budget statement. Before the break, Chris, I mentioned the question about the social care, the fact that is there a contradiction with increasing the level of support for the needy in the country at the same time while we say the economy is improving?
Well, I have been on record. I've always been a little bit critical about the level of social programs in a small country that we invest in. But when you read the IMF reports and all of them, they talk about paying more attention to the vulnerable people and those in the poor and the plight of the poor and moving them out of that category. And when you talk to our NGO friends, they will tell you that we still have a serious poverty situation in Grenada and people who are not at the level that they need to be. So I suspect it is based on that background that you're seeing extra effort is being placed there. But I always say, as Colin just mentioned, value for money is an important thing. And abuse of these programs is also an area that governments, not this one government, governments before have suffered in these things. So I suspect from that angle that is where it's coming from. But as I say, I've always, a little skeptical of the amount.
Because this question is directed to you. It had to do with trade and export development. The value of food import bill for the first 9 months was $145 million thereabout. Food took up 20% of total imports. But one thing the Prime Minister said is that he's going to work with the Grenada Poultry Association to reduce the bill to 10% of total imports. Didn't make a lot of sense to me, but that's gigantic. I mean, there's a major policy statement here. What are the implications? I'm assuming that you're going to develop the poultry industry in a big way and to deal with a lot of policy issues there. What did you make of this statement?
Well, as I said, the intention is noble.
Yeah.
Because there's a market.
Yeah.
There's a market here for local poultry.
Yeah.
But there must be complementary policies because it's also a trade issue. So while we have good intentions, in the context of CARICOM and CSME, I don't, it will be a difficult one to do because you have to keep in consideration all of obligation with respect to trade and taxes and protectionism. So yes, it has to be done, but the whole issue is the cost. Are we going to raise, let us say, licensing requirements to give them the ability to grow and develop and mature? Because they would be considered an infant industry.
So the question is what policy around that? And
yes, it's a statement, but missing all the policy
support to it.
Yeah,
so we're going to obviously hear more about this.
Yeah.
But we haven't talked about agriculture and fisheries and tourism. These are very important sectors. But just briefly, Joe, did you pick up anything, Sir Joseph, on these sectors at all? The budgetary allocation hasn't
there's some
been
talk. There's some talk in here about agriculture and helping people who suffered as a result of the flooding.
$1 million is going to be allocated.
But it's going to start in 2016. But it is a start. It is a start because, don't forget, there were a lot of losses arising out of the, unseasonal rains. So it's a start.
You're in the parliament. The government, the Prime Minister indicated that he would not be here for the budget debate, that he's off to Malta and Paris. Of course, this is important government business. But should the debate have been put off, rescheduled, since as a Minister of Finance, he's not there to debate this question? Is there precedent in this?
Well, I don't know if there's precedent. I mean, the 15-0 is a thing we had before. They didn't have no opposition in the lower house. In my house, we probably have a more energetic debate that will take place.
Of course,
But I don't know. I mean, Prime Minister will be back in time for the winding up. I don't know how he's calculating that.
You heard the budget also? You listened to it?
No,
you read it?
I didn't actually hear it.
There was a lot of political swipe at the opposition and comments on some through. Is this normal? Is this standard? Do we have this kind of picong in budget presentations? You've been in the service.
I've been in the service for a while, but I think at this point I felt it was too much. And a lot of the policy issues have not been ventilated. Trade policy, income policy, and no matter ICT, big ICT. Without ICT, you can't speak of development. It's now considered the emerging platform for development and growth. So a lot of the policy issues have not been ventilated to give some kind of cohesion to the budget. It's too much of that. You can't keep blaming the opposition. Let's tie it down to policy and move forward.
Look, we're clearly running out of time here, but obviously we needed more time. We have a lot of sectors to continue discussing in detail. But one thing interesting today occurred before we close is that the Speaker of the House said we're going to shift the rules a little bit and allow the students to take notes. Now, I remember last year I said it's just stupid, frankly. You have persons in the Parliament, they're taking notes, they have their laptop. There's nothing wrong with taking notes while it's not interfering with the debate. You're a member of Parliament. But anyway, the point is it's a good thing that they've started with the students, allowing the students to make notes while listening to the budget presentation. Gentlemen, that's all the time we have. Viewers, we'll see you next week at the same time. Have a good night. Bye-bye.